Tell me you got an up. Tell me you got an up, buddy.
Oh, man. I've seen teams suck before, but we're the suckiest bunch of sucks that ever sucked right now.
So like we need to like maybe we just get relocated to Quebec or something, or like should we be on the anniversary of Green and Benning's firing? Maybe we should get the whole team fired, or
Can we just play the rest of the season on the freaking road? Like, what the hell? Seriously, I don't understand the lack of fire. I don't understand why these guys aren't ready to play in front of a home crowd. I don't understand why our home crowd isn't ready to get these guys fired up. It's just so many things that drive me absolutely up the wall.
I mean, even Garland didn't look like he had any fire in him, and that's concerning because if there's anyone on this team that ends up with fire, it's Connor Garland, right?
Yeah, Lankinen looked lost out there, losing his crease early. We just, as a complete team from top to bottom, look completely disjointed. And, 14 of 19 games playing from behind. Yeah, Miller's not in the lineup right now. He's one of those guys we always look to get the team fired up when he's motivated and channeling his emotion the right way. But when that guy's not in your lineup, you got to look to the coaches to find somebody to get the team going. And sooner or later, you got to start questioning Tocchet and his ability to get this team ready to play hockey. And I know it's not something anyone wants to talk about because he won the Jack Adams last year. But when you have as much talent as we have in the lineup, it cannot fall on Miller to be the reason that we are or are not playing well. It has to fall on someone. And unfortunately, right now, I'm looking at Tocchet.
Well, and even like today, like we were doing the lineup to start the day, and they moved Ratu to the wing and then had Sasson come in, but Ratu's been like one of the best face-off guys, so it's like a complete head scratcher as to like what the logic is there. Are they like, what could be the logic behind moving Ratu to the wing? Is it free him up to be more offensive?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think right now, even Tocchet is at a loss. I think he's reaching and grabbing. I mean, you saw right at the end of the period there, he stopped Höglander from going out on the ice and sent Joshua out with Bluger and Sherwood. I mean, even he's at a loss. I'd be really curious to be a fly on the wall in that intermission right now. If he's not tearing a strip off of those guys for that effort, I don't know what it's going to take.
Peeling the paint
two
off
shots,
the walls.
Yeah, two shots on goal in a period in the NHL is inexcusable. I don't care what team you are. I don't care what team you're playing against. There is absolutely no reason for that other than they just aren't ready to play.
I mean, you even think that the Canucks have Thatcher Demko sitting on the bench. You feel like that might even be something that might get the team fired up. Like, and you saw them in the warm-up. You saw everyone stoked to have him on the ice. Like, how come that doesn't get them going? Are we even at a point now where maybe you look at, heck, let's just throw Demko in for the second period here?
Well, I mean, if we get further behind, I mean, why not throw him in for the last half of the game? Get him some reps because he might as well get some work in because the rest of the team isn't.
Well, I was even, I can't remember who said it in chat earlier, but they're like, depending on what the score is, like, I would not be shocked to see the Canucks have Thatcher Demko come in for at least the third period. Maybe if they're up by a lot or down by a lot, maybe you would see him come in and play that third period, just get that couple minutes in.
Possibly. I mean, it'd be nice to see him in the game for sure, but yeah, I just we got to get our feet moving. It's inexcusable, and I don't really have anything. I started off very early in the period. I wrote, it's good the defense is activating early and keeping the puck in the offensive zone, and that was about for 3 minutes, and then it just evaporated.
Well, even on that, it wasn't even a goal, but like near the end of the period there, you had the Bluger line out, and then the Columbus guy all alone behind the net. Neither one of the defensemen goes to him, and the other Columbus player skates right down the slot. Bluger's got his back to the guy, and he gets an amazing chance. It could have easily have been 3-0 there, and they would have had more goals than the Canucks have shot. So nobody's watching what they need to be watching. Nobody's in the right position, and like you said, the biggest thing is nobody's moving their feet. Everyone's just standing around.
And it's the same stale breakout every time. We saw it about 4 or 5 times in a row. One player skates up the middle, just over the blue line, dumps it to the wing, and we take an attempt at a shot from about 20, 30 feet out instead of driving to the net or, getting it to the middle. Everything's perimeter, everything's outside. Even DeBrusque had a chance to drive the net, and instead his mental programming is to go around the back of the net because of all this structure that they're being forced to play. None of them are playing on instinct, and you can see it. Everyone is trying to do something, and it's not working. They just need to play hockey, and they need to stop thinking and get the puck to the net. And I don't know what it is, and for me that falls on coaching. Like, these guys are being overcoached at this point.
Yeah. Well, even on that first goal, you saw Brandstrom didn't have his check. It was the same thing. He was watching the guy behind the net. Cole Sillinger makes a good pass to the opposite side. And then the guy he passed to is wide open because Brandstrom's watching the guy behind the net rather than turning around and looking at the play to see what he should be doing, right?
Yep, exactly.
Moving on to the next topic, it kind of makes you wonder why we sent Jonathan Lekermacki down with the problems that we're having with shots. Because yes, with Philip Hronek going on LTIR, they called up Lekermacki, McWard, and Sasson back up. And then they now again today with the activation of Thatcher Demko sent down Lekermacki and Cole McWard. Why is Sasson still up here if you have a guy like Lekermacki who's a shooting machine?
Well, I think some of it has to do with cap gymnastics. You sent me that article there by Canuck Army about the LTIR and how accrual works and performance bonuses and this, that, and the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it has to do with the activation of Demko today. They had to clear a roster spot for him because they haven't sent Shelovs down yet. So there's a bit of that sort of thing going on, but I do hear what you're saying. Sasson being up, he's a little more defensively responsible, can play in a little more fourth line role than Lekermacki.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really understand it. Like you said, we need those offensive minded players that are shoot first mentality because boy oh boy, could we use some of that.
So let's quickly just break down all those roster moves. Like I said, I sent you that article. So they put Philip Hronek in LTIR. And then they called up Lekermacki, Cole McWar, and Sasson. And then they still had Demko and JT Miller on designated as non-roster players, and then Derek Forbert on injury reserve, which essentially meant that after all of that, they were $8,000 above the cap at that point, right? And they have to be cap compliant before they go into a game. So what does that actually mean when it comes to all this talk of gymnastics and like trying to accrue more cap space when it comes up to the trading deadline?
So basically what it means is that if you have a player going on LTIR, you can't accrue cap space in the sense of adding a player later in the year. What happens is the LTIR cap relief is to allow you to bring in a player at a higher contract dollar figure and still ice a competitive team. So it's basically like advanced calculus nowadays with the people who are keeping track of the cap and the moves that are necessary to maximize the dollars we can get out of it. I don't keep a watch league wide on microtransactions, so I'm unsure if other GMs are doing the same sort of thing by calling up guys, sending them down on off days, and that sort of stuff. But there's definitely some major ins and outs that this crew has taken under their under the way they do things, and I mean, hopefully we see a benefit with a trade at the trade deadline that helps us push towards a deep playoff run.
Yeah, I think the most layman's term way to explain LTIR that I've seen is rather than thinking about if you have a tank of water, that's your whole salary cap. LTR is not taking a big scoop out of that water and taking it to the side. It's actually getting a bigger tank. So you actually get on top of the cap space that you already have. So now if the Canucks wanted to, they could trade for a player that would be the same dollar amount as Philip Hronek, but technically they would still be whatever that is above the cap, whatever he's making. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Four Nations Cup. They finally announced all the rosters off of all the four teams announced it together on Wednesday. Was there anything that stood out for you amongst the four teams rosters? Anything that surprised you?
There were a few surprises for sure. I think most notably Connor Bedard being left off of the Canada team,
Mhm.
given that, he is that number one draft pick, generational type talent. He's supposed to kind of take the mantle as McDavid gets older. He's the next guy. So you would have thought from a marketing standpoint, he would have been in there. Granted, it's a pretty deep pool of forwards to pull from for Canada, and also there were six spots already spoken for way back in June of this year. So a little surprised by that. Obviously, on the blue line, there's some omissions. Oilers fans will tell you right away that Evan Bouchard should probably be on the team, but I tend to disagree
Yeah,
with
we
their
both are on the
assessments of
same
his.
page with that. He's terrible defensively.
Yeah, like it's not surprising that he's not on there. He's a power play merchant. He feeds off of McDavid and Draisaitl big time. So, but two major omissions of guys that are having really big seasons this year. I noticed on US were Cole Caulfield and Tage Thompson, who aren't really going to hurt you either way. But given how deep the US talent pool is right now, with the U.S. national development team and that sort of stuff. Not really surprising that there were some big names left off of that team.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously for the Canucks, they ended up with Lankinen, and it looks like they even have, like you said, they might have Lankinen as the starter on that Finnish team because the way they had the roster posted, it looked like they had him slotted in as a starter. Pedersen playing for Sweden, and then you got JT Miller. It looks like they slotted him in as kind of like the 13th forward on that roster. Probably just waiting to
Mhm.
see what happens with him, and then I mean, I was gonna say I'm surprised Demko didn't get the nod, but then again, they have probably three guys that could win the Vezina on their team anyways without him there. So, and who knows what's going on with his knee?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still a little sad they didn't get the Gargoyle on there, but like you said, they're a very deep team. And then with the Bedard thing, it almost wasn't it the was it the Olympics where Sidney Crosby was in his rookie year and Sidney Crosby ended up getting left off of a roster for a Team Canada? I can't remember. Maybe Jay Bocott, you can do the research for me. I'm pretty sure Sidney Crosby got left off of a Canadian roster, which gives me a very similar vibe to what they did to Bedard here. It might just be a Team Canada thing where they're looking to have the veterans out there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And also, it would have been nice to see Marc-Andre Fleury get the nod for the goalies. Just in his last season as the last hurrah, give the guy a little shot there. But obviously, Sam Montembeault having a great season so far in Montreal, so definitely played his way onto that team, which is great accomplishment for him.
As a side note, I don't know if anyone saw Kevin BX's predictions for the goaltenders for Canada. He had Luongo and Fleury on his list as predicted goalies for Canada, which was quite hilarious because it's BX and he does what he wants.
Absolutely.
So yesterday was the 3-year anniversary of Jim Benning and Green being fired from the Canucks. It seems like a longer time than 3 years ago because so much has changed. When you go back and think about that era of the Benning Green specifically, what do you think was kind of the biggest failure between the two of them when it came to the Canucks?
I think it was miscommunication with what was required on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
Green was pretty handcuffed with the the teams that he was being given, and some big anchor contracts with players that weren't used to playing in a environment where there's so much scrutiny, and became huge underperformers. Um, basically the claim to fame for Benning was overpaying and overstaying the welcome. So, you know, given given the mess that the new regime was handed, it does feel like a lot longer time because of the accomplishments that Alvin and Rutherford and Tocchet have been able to make already with some of the anchor contracts they were able to offload early, some of the sneaky little signings and the diamonds in the rough that they've been able to find through smart trades or smart signings. And, it brought stability back to the organization that had been lacking since, the 2011 Cup run.
If you had to pick Benning's biggest blunder, what out of all of we got a big list, so it might be hard to pick, but if you had to pick his worst signing or worst trade, what would you say was Benning's biggest mistake?
The biggest mistake,
yeah,
was drafting Ole Ulevi ahead of Matthew Tkachuk.
Yep, I can agree with that. And we all saw the result of that. Ole Ulevi laying in the corner like he was dead at Canucks training camp.
I can excuse all of the contracts. I can excuse all of the trades. But that draft pick is the one thing that will always stick in my mind, especially after seeing what Tkachuk has accomplished in Florida. He's that player that you would love to have on your team, and God, would I love to see him in a Canucks jersey right now.
Yeah, he'd look really good on a line with Pettersson, I think.
Oh, would he ever?
Yeah, I think the only one that maybe comes close for me was the Louis Eriksson signing. Was because it was so much money and upfront, and it was based off of essentially the World Championship where Eriksson had played with the Sedins and looked really good. And anyone can look really good beside the Sedins, but it's also a completely different style of hockey. And to sign him so long term, I mean, literally the dude showed up and scored on his net to start, right? Like it doesn't get much worse than that. So I would say outside of that, Ole Ulevi, I would say that the Louis Eriksson is probably the worst thing that Benning ever did.
Oh, absolutely. It was signing a guy to play with a couple older veterans, and they had this run in a world championship that was years earlier when they were much younger players. And so it just was not a well-advised contract signing for sure. That's definitely a high second on my list.
Can the Canucks get more than 2 shots in this period?
Good Lord, I hope so.
We will chat just briefly about the Abbott Canucks. Let's hang on to that for the post-game show. And let's all cross our fingers and hope they have a better showing in the second period.
I mean, if they don't, Tocchet's face might actually turn the color of his tie.
But you will note they did update Tocchet's face in NHL 25, so he doesn't look like Dr. Phil anymore. So,
oh, great! they took away the cul-de-sac. Eh?
Yeah. They sure did. All right, brother. We'll talk to you in the post game.
Sounds good. Go Canucks.
Nothing is perfect.